Spielberg had first encountered Duel as a short story in the April 1971 issue of Playboy magazine, and shortly thereafter learned that Universal Television would soon be producing an adaptation for the ABC Movie of the Week. Richard Matheson wrote the teleplay as well as the original short story upon which it was based. He had previously authored many stories which went on to be featured in the Twilight Zone television series, such as Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which would later be remade as one of the segments in the Spielberg-produced and co-directed The Twilight Zone the movie in 1983, though this segment was directed by George Miller and not Spielberg. The story of Duel follows a wimpy man on a business trip who innocently passes a slow-moving, smoke-spouting truck on a desert highway. In response, the truck begins to tailgate and terrorize the protagonist. The situation escalates as the apparently psychotic truck driver continually stalks and attempts to kill him. The story had interested Spielberg because it was like Psycho or The Birds on Wheels. To get hired as director for the television adaptation of Duel, he presented a rough cut of his recent Columbo episode to producer George Eckstein. Spielberg was then given a budget of $450,000 and a large degree of creative license to complete the made-for-TV film. In the role of David Mann, whose name calls to mind the tale of David and Goliath and other stories of man vs. machine, stars veteran actor Dennis Weaver, known for his portrayal of limping lawman Chester B. Good in Gunsmoke, and for playing a small part in Orson Welles' 1958 Touch of Evil as a paranoid motel night manager whose trembling, panic performance predicts his part in Duel.
They think I'm gonna fix them. They got another thing coming. They think I'm gonna clean it up. They got another thing coming. If you think you can take that truck of yours and just use it as a murder weapon, just killing people on the highway, well, you've got another thing coming.
Weaver plays the trademark Spielberg character type of an ordinary man faced with supernatural forces or otherworldly occurrences with a banal sympathy. The terror of his situation and inner monologue connect him to the audience, though he is still rather timid and pathetic, a character trait which plays into the film's theme of losing and regaining control. A first hint at this theme is the radio show playing in the background of the opening sequence, where a male caller worries that his neighbors will learn that his wife was designated as the head of the household on his most recent tax return. Man's emasculation and inability to challenge others or exert his masculinity is conveyed by the phone call he has with his wife.
You think that I should go out and call Steve Henderson up and challenge him to a fist fight or something?
No, of course not. But, I think you could have at least said something to the man last night. After all, he was practically trying to rape me in front of that whole party.
Oh, come on, honey.
When he is also unable to stand up to the truck menacing him, crashing into a fence, then walking into a roadside cafe, Spielberg blocks David sitting alone in a corner of the diner which is entirely painted pink, with uncomfortable glances piercing across from the grizzled truckers at the bar. These patrons, just like the truck, are symbolic of a primal masculinity which confronts David Mann until he is cornered and has no choice but to fight back. Spielberg chose the 40-ton Peterbilt truck used in most of the movie based off of its apparent facial features to give it an uncanny personification. Dead bugs and grime were applied to the grille and windshield to add character, as well as the various license plates on the front bumper from Montana to New Mexico, which serve as a sign of other incidents of vehicular violence across the country. It was originally Matheson who had the idea to never reveal the identity of the truck driver, aside from glimpses of his arms and boots, and Spielberg's direction adheres to this rule. In the classic style perfected by Hitchcock, the anonymous driver remains unseen throughout the film, using the fear of the unknown to give the truck itself a malevolent sentience. This was a lesson to Spielberg that a movie could be frightening because of what is not shown, a technique he would perfect later in Jaws. The actual man behind the wheel of the truck is professional stunt coordinator Kerry Lofton, who safely maneuvers the Peterbilt truck through many impressive and exciting stunts. Pat Eustace, who had also previously worked with Lofton on 1968's Bullet, had built a camera car by attaching a special rig to a stripped convertible Corvette. Spielberg was able to use this camera car again on Duel to efficiently capture fast-moving shots of the car and truck. The use of long lenses and low angles increases the sense of speed, and the addition of cliffs rushing by in the background further intensifies this effect. By setting up several cameras along a 1-mile strip of road, Spielberg was able to capture many angles at once and much more coverage in only a single pass. This was done with the aid of a huge and detailed overhead map that had been made, laying out all of his shots in advance so that
when I jumped out of continuity, I knew exactly where I was.
Though this film was not storyboarded frame by frame as other later Spielberg projects would be, this forethought and visualization certainly predict that technique, and is one of the reasons why he was able to shoot outside, on location, and complete the telefilm in only 13 days. This short production schedule meant that there was little extra time to set up dolly shots and booms, so Spielberg only uses them sparingly for heightened dramatic effect. Out of necessity, the camera is locked down for the majority of the shots. Nevertheless, it is still free to pan, tilt, and look about. This is used to reframe and alter the composition often enough to keep a viewer engaged, while also speeding up the process of filming by eliminating different camera setups which themselves would likely require multiple takes. This ability to combine and switch compositions within a single shot was an advantage provided for him by his previous experience directing within the technical limitations of television productions, and is a technique he would continue to use throughout his films to create a sense of immersion or visual dynamism. Already apparent in this early work is his signature Spielbergian economy of shot, where what would normally be seen in a combination of 2 or more shots is instead conveyed in just a single unbroken take. An obvious example is the 2-minute and 45-second shot which begins when David enters the cafe to cool off in the bathroom, only to return and see the truck parked outside the front window. The noise generated by the handheld Arriflex camera used for this shot was so loud that the audio for the scene had to be re-recorded. To sync up the actor's movements with the voiceover, the dialogue was recorded in advance and played back while filming so that Weaver could react spontaneously to his thoughts. Staying with David for the entirety of this shot limits an audience's experience to the immediate setting and mindset of the protagonist, while subtly building a dramatic tension which is paid off by the unwelcome return of the truck. Another prominent example of Spielberg's combination of multiple shots into one is the staging or compression of space within a frame so that elements of the foreground and background are both visible simultaneously. This can create a connection between two things which may be separated by a great distance, or allow an audience to selectively focus on parts of a composition while still maintaining a sense of the bigger picture. This is yet another technique adopted and learned from his time directing television episodes, and is prominently and continually seen throughout his filmography. Of the 7 cameras which had been set up to film the truck and car as they tumbled down the rocky precipice, only one slow-motion angle was used in the final edit, treating the demise of the truck as if it were the death of a monstrous beast. The roaring sound heard as the truck goes over the cliff is the same one used in a similar shot in Jaws just after the shark has been blown up. The original score by Billy Goldenberg, which in some places even sounds familiar to John Williams' score for Jaws, bridges the gap from Spielberg's TV work to his film career. Goldenberg had composed the music for his Night Gallery segment, Murder by the Book, and the Name of the Game episode LA 2017, although his work on Duel is notably more experimental, incorporating tubular bells, low drums, harps, and violins to create tense and unnerving soundscapes. With only a little over 3 weeks between wrapping on principal photography and the scheduled air date on ABC, Spielberg worked with 5 simultaneous editors to finish the cut. The critical and public response to the original airing of Duel on November 20th, 1971 had been so positive, even winning the TV movie an Emmy for sound editing, that Universal released an extended theatrical cut of Duel in Europe, Australia, and Japan in the following year. The original 74-minute runtime of the telefilm was expanded by filming additional scenes, such as the car reversing out of the garage and driving through the city, the phone call David makes to his wife, the encounter with the school bus, and the attempted murder at a railroad crossing, resulting in a 90-minute feature-length runtime for the international release. This took another 3 days of filming, and, understandably, a new truck. The foreign reception to Duel proved to be even stronger, winning Spielberg further acclaim, including top director honors at the Taormina Film Festival in Rome in 1973, where he met with Federico Fellini, who was an admirer of the film.